Hello, everyone, and welcome to another special episode of the 1973 podcast. We're glad to have on the show this week NHL alumni Dan Quinn. Dan, happy to have you. We're going to talk shop. We're going to talk about the career. We're going to have some fun, share up with the fellas, and tell some stories. And we'll just bring you along.
I appreciate you having me. Thanks for the invite.
No problem. So we always start off by asking you, as a young kid, the love of hockey. How did it start?
Well, it was pretty simple. My dad was um, played at Queen's University in just us in Kingston, Ontario. He played some hockey, but he also played football. He ended up playing for the Ottawa Rough Riders. So he was a big, just sports was in his blood. So I was born in June of '65 and was got my first pair of skates at the Christmas that I was two and started skating that winter. I can still remember the outdoor rink. It was 66 Foothills Drive was our address in Bell's Bell's Corners, Ontario. Which is near is Nepean and Ottawa. Anyway, and I don't know if you ever saw those old wooden, steel buns or whatever. My dad would fill it up with water and fatten the snow out, and I had about a nice little 20 by 15 rink for to learn how to skate that particular winter. And by the time I was four, I was playing organized hockey.
Nice. So at what point in time did you think that you had a shot to turn hockey into something?
Well, so when I was four, I was actually to play with 6-year-olds. So I was pretty good as a kid, but you never really think it because there's a lot of guys that are, especially in Canada, that were good. Um, when I started to realize I had a couple of really good years, in Adam and Pee Wee, which I don't know what they call it now, but Tyke and Pee Wee. And then when I was 14, I was playing high school. When I was 15, I was playing junior B with 19, 20-year-olds. And that's when I started to realize I was number one ranked in Ontario and went first overall in the Ontario draft in 1981, the OHL draft. Draft that included like Scott Stevens and Steve Yzerman and Pat Verbeek and Brian Bradley and Adam Creighton. It was a pretty good draft when I look back at it. But I was 16, just turned 16 again, a June kid, and weighed about 150, 55 pounds. So I went to my first camp. That first year was a little bit of a learning curve. But then I finished, I think, second in scoring the following year and got drafted in the first round. But I think when I was 14, 15, I knew that I had a chance if I applied myself, if I worked at it. And I wish I had the info. My brother asked me, we were talking last night. I said, I wish I would have had the information to have now, like somebody to train with and how to work out and whatnot, because I was pretty skilled, but I would have loved to have the technology and nutrition that they have now. I worked, with what we had, doing the old workouts, but then that was gone 2 weeks into the season because you didn't lift weights, you didn't know how to train. But anyway, it was a fun start to make it at 18 in the NHL, and probably a little too early, but I was good enough to play, but I was probably not mentally ready.
So we always ask, do you have any really good draft day stories?
Well, I was drafted in Montreal. I remember the draft, and I remember pretty vividly actually, and I knew that I wasn't gonna go past Washington, who was picking 14th. So I knew that they wanted me. They'd interviewed me. They'd come to Brockville like three times. I forget David Poyle was a GM, but I forget who the gentleman was or the scout. Literally came to like met me at McDonald's in Brockville, Ontario. I was from Ottawa. I didn't live. I only lived in Brockville for a couple summers, but that's where I was that particular year of the draft. And then, anyway, it was in Montreal, and I remember getting drafted. And then my coolest story, I guess I would say, was after the night after the draft, being picked was kind of the pick, and then we were spending the night, and Steve Yzerman and I got invited to go to. We were friends from Ottawa, and got invited to go to get our first patterns made of. So we went to the Titan factory in Victoriaville, just outside of Montreal, and we both had to take the train because our parents left us there. We weren't going to the stick factory, but we went and got our patterns made, first sticks made ever. Um, Steve and I, and then we took the train back to Ottawa, and I spent the night at his parents' place that night, the Sunday night. So the draft I think was on the Saturday morning. The other story I kind of tell, if you know, I played hockey in that, but I also played golf in Lake Tahoe a bunch of times, winning it 5 times. But the night before the draft, I remember going to an Expo game against the Pirates. So this is 1983, and Rick Rhoden, who ended up being my kind of rival or nemesis in the celebrity golf stuff, he pitched that game. So I remember that
Nice,
particular, yeah. So
nice, nice.
So before we get deep into the NHL career, I'm going to have Derek and Tom ask a round of questions. So Derek, what do you got?
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I was going to say that I think you're the first two sports star we've had on the 1973 podcast. I did some reading up on the golf. So golf started for you early as well, and you kind of had to make a
So we got,
choice.
yeah. So I was born in Ottawa, but when we were 12, we moved to London, Ontario, and it was where I was just at that age where I was playing. My dad had me playing all sports, but I was obviously going to play hockey in the winter and play some baseball. But I fell in love with golf that summer. There was a place called Thames Valley in London, Ontario. It was a 18-hole regular course, public course, but it had a 9-hole executive course, like par 31 or two. So it wasn't all par threes. There was a couple of three, four par fours, a bunch of par threes, and a par five. And I would go as the summers went on. I just took my bike and got a set of clubs and that I had from when I was 11 or 12, 10 or 11. And I would go take my bike and they would go, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to the golf course." And I would go from the morning till night. And then I started getting jobs in the summers. So to answer your question, yeah, I played my first Ontario junior at 14. Um, I played an Ontario amateur when I was 16. There was one by a guy named Gary Cowan who played in Masters. If you Google him, he's a legend in Ontario in Canadian golf. Played in just very decorated. He won it. But I finished in the top 20, and that was the year I was drafted into Belleville. So when you say I actually have letters from two or three schools when I was 15 in the United States. I think New Mexico. Nothing like I don't even remember what it was to that if I wanted to go play golf, I could go to
Oh,
their
nice,
schools.
nice. Yeah, and people don't realize how big golf's a pretty big game in Canada, is it not? I mean,
I
very
think it's
popular.
got the largest per capita population and
Yeah,
registered handicaps in the
yeah,
world.
yeah, yeah.
So
If you
as we
watch a
have
tournament up there, it's always a big crowd. It seems like a
they
big.
don't play. The only way I said they have such a short season. They don't play fast, and they still wear those socks halfway up their calves. So it's kind of weird, but they love their golf, no question, and
Nice,
they love
nice.
they get there 3, 4, well, some places 5 months, 6 months, but London was a little milder. So I actually played golf like you could play until October, November. I remember that there was a
Nice.
fall golf team, but the golf in London, the golf in Canada is phenomenal, and the golf courses in London were terrific, and tons of like there was a junior golf tournament every Monday. So I did that for until even up till the year I played till I went to Belleville. I played in the Ontario Junior that year as well, and the Ontario Amateur, and then I kind of stopped competing um, other than once or twice a summer until the Lake Tahoe tournament popped up in I think in '91. So
Okay. Nice.
um, played in that for 23 years.
Nice. I wanted to go back to Belleville because I don't know if that's considered an expansion franchise. You were not only the first pick, but you were the first pick ever for Belleville.
Well,
And
that would be called an expansion.
yeah,
Yes.
okay, yeah. And
So
so I did a little
they
digging
were a
there and I
tier
saw
two.
some line mates that popped right to me. I was like, oh wow, this must have been interesting. Marty McSorley and the gentleman who I believe was in the first career fight for Bob Probert was Craig Cox. So
Yeah.
what was that like having those guys on their team?
So the coach was a guy named Larry Mavity that drafted me, and I was first ever pick. Belleville was a tier two team, which is level below Major A, and then they went. That was their first year of Major A. I was their first pick ever. So yeah, and they were an expansion team. So he had no illusions of much other than that we were not going to get beat up. So we had a very tough team. Marty's still a dear friend, and I have tremendous stories about both. Actually been put back in contact with Craig Cox. I've spoken to him on the phone within the last 2 years. But Marty is, he will never ever admit this because he thinks he's Ray Bork now. But he was a kid from Cayuga, Ontario, where the worst words he ever heard from his dad were, "Hey boys, out to the barn," because he had some really tough brothers. And the first shift we had an inter squad game in Belleville, I'm shaking, like I'm scared to death. First camp, Marty's in 4 fights. Finally, Mav goes, "You got to get off the effing ice, Marty. We got to go to dinner at some point." So he just kept fighting, and he fought his way onto the team, and they kept him. And by Christmas or maybe January, I worked with him a lot. Um, He would just skate and practice. After our practice, he would go more. He just would every time he could get on the ice. And he was actually on the power play, and then obviously as tough as nails and could fight anybody. I knew that the art of those guys too. They knew the timing of when to fight and not fight. There was an art to the Proberts, the Craig Coxes, Martys, Semenkos, and from that era, it wasn't stage fighting. It was the timing of it. And I was never, I was on the ice against Bob Probert. I was never afraid of him because I knew he was never going to do anything to me. Because if he did something to me, somebody's going to do something to Steve Eisman. It was just, there was just but I'm not saying I didn't know where he was,
Yeah.
but I mean, but yeah, so having Marty and Craig, and I don't even know if they were the two toughest guys in our team. We had another three or four guys that were just, Ben Kelly was our captain. He was not as big as them, but tough as nails. So Ali Budarak, Ray Flaherty, I can go on and on. We had nothing, but we had three or four hockey players and a bunch of tough guys so that we could kind of
Nice.
keep our own in some of these arenas.
Nice. Nice.
Tom, question for Dan.
Sure. What was the biggest challenge you faced on your way to playing pro hockey?
My biggest challenge, actually, it went so fast. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if there was I wish there maybe was more challenges. The first year of junior, I realized I needed to get in better shape and get bigger and stronger. The summer that I was drafted, I had my wisdom teeth taken out and I played a lot of golf. And I realized that that's not, wasn't going to do it. So the summer that I turned 17 and going into my second year of junior, I worked out twice a day. I went to Belleville a month before the season started and skated and I think that led me. I went to training camp in Belleville before my first training camp in the NHL in Calgary, and I think the conditioning that I had from that helped me have a really good camp in Calgary. Um, and they had a very deep veteran team, so I got sent back to junior for 2 months and got called up what they thought was going to be a three-game because we were in Belleville, so they called me up to go play in Quebec City, Washington, and then Toronto. And by the time the Toronto game, I was getting double shifted, and they said, "We're going to take you back to Calgary." And then once I played six more games, they couldn't send me down. So it kind of went pretty quick. I got basically a point a game in those 54 games. I had 52 points and a point a game in the playoffs, losing to Edmonton in a seven-game series. That was Edmonton's first cup in '84. So yeah, it was. I don't know. The second year wasn't great, but then I, had good years, and as years go on and time go on, you look back and I wish I could have done a lot of things differently. There was a lot of challenges for sure.
Dan, that first training camp, was there a welcome to the NHL moment, like when you finally got there?
There was an inter squad game. Yeah, I remember taking a couple face-offs against Jim Poplinski and Doug Riseborough, where they made sure to give you the business after, especially if you beat them on the face-off. But it was interesting. Like I said, I was in really good shape and I was ready. It was Bob Johnson, Badger Bob was our coach, and he was one of the first to initiate testing, physical fitness. So I remember we actually ran where the Calgary Stampeders, they have a track. We ran that track in the sand that the horses run. I don't know how long, but I think it was like a mile long. We had to run it twice. And I remember we were like 70 guys back then. They'd take 70 guys to camp because everybody, there's so many teams to fill, the IHL, AHL, whatever, so many layers of minors, and they could do it because nobody was making any money. So, anyways, it was interesting, and still got some friends from that team. Al McGinnis and I roomed together and lived together, and Mike Vernon, both in the Hall of Fame. Still talk to Mike a lot, and it was a good team, and it was actually very hard to be brought into that Calgary Edmonton rivalry, especially that Oiler team was unbelievable.
Was there a veteran when you got there that kind of like mentored you or took you under their wing?
There was two. One they didn't want, but it was Kent Nilsson. I was staying in a hotel, 18 years old, and he goes, "Come stay with me." So I went and stayed with them, and then they found me a family. Once I knew I was staying up, so I stayed with the Woods. There was the Mr. Tom and Sue Wood, but I was Lanny McDonald definitely was number one. He and I were line mates, but we would have dinner on the road. We played euchre on the planes. So it was the only way I could get an aisle seat. So, in the back we flew commercial, so I would get in the card game. But definitely was Lanny. There was a lot of them. I mean, think about the guys I played with. Doug Riseborough, I mentioned already. Paul Reinhardt, Jim Poplinski, ended up over the years, John Tonelli, Joe Mullen, all playing that 3.5 years that my first three in Calgary. So, but Kent Nielsen's was a character, and again, I was just called up, and I was in that hotel for 3 or 4 nights, and he goes, "Come stay in my house," and that really made the first couple 3 weeks go by. I spent Christmas with them as well, so it
Dan,
was it
as
made
I've
it.
gotten a little older, I had more appreciation for the WHA. Looking back, reading books and watching videos. Can you tell us just how good Kent Nielsen, how good of a player he was?
Well, I'll tell you two stories. Well, about 10 years ago, I was at Wayne Gretzky's fantasy camp in Vegas, and it was just him and I having a couple of drinks and kind of I got invited. He started coming to Florida because of his grandkids in 2015. So we kind of reconnected in 2015, 16, and at his fantasy camp. We both talked about one. Like I said, in my first 3 years, I think I played that Edmonton Oilers team 42 times. So
Wow.
you had two exhibitions, 8 regular seasons, and then a 7 game series, in 84 and 86. Plus, so if you do the math, it's like 42
That's
games.
that's original six stuff right there.
And yeah, but I said to him, who was the best player? He said Ken Nielsen was the most skilled hockey player I ever saw. And that's coming from Wayne Gretzky. So I
Yeah.
think it was Mary Lemieux, but I can't disagree that he was unbelievable, but Mary Lemieux is the greatest physical hockey player I've ever seen.
Tom, question for Dan.
Yeah, your rookie year, do you remember who you scored your first goal against?
Yeah, I scored against Andy Moog in Edmonton. It was December 23rd, 1983, and I think it might have been my ninth or tenth game. I'd had a point a game, all assists, and but it was 51 seconds to go, and I have this screenshot of it. So it was my first goal, and it was would tie the game with back then to get a tie, to get a point before there was overtimes was a big deal. So it was to tie the game 5-5, and on the sheet Quinn's first. But if you look at the sheet as it goes down, Gretzky's 39th, Curry's 27th, Paul Coffey's 19th, and you're looking at it's December 23rd. I got the snapshot of it. It's pretty hilarious.
Dan, that moving on from Calgary to Pittsburgh, how did that go about?
Um, well, I would say looking back, Calgary was in a position they wanted to win and beat Edmonton. So I was trying to, because of Wayne, there was guys like myself and Pat LaFontaine's and Steve Yzerman's smaller skill guys that were getting, good looks in the NHL. But when I was in Calgary with Badger Bob, for some like he struggled with a lot of Kent Nielsen. He was gone, and like he didn't handle him well. He didn't handle skilled players very well, if that makes sense. So I was getting frustrated after 3 years. Led the team in scoring at 20 years old. Went to the finals in '86 and lost to Montreal, and then signed a nice deal that summer, and then came back, and it was just the same old, didn't know how much I was going to play. Every game was a mystery. So getting traded to Pittsburgh was kind of a relief, but yet they were so far behind at that point. I mean, nobody picked me up at the airport. Like they were just Mario was in his second year. No, Mario's in his third year, but it was a great group of guys. And once I got into it, it was awesome. And I called Pittsburgh home for 15 years, actually, once I got traded there. But the team, I was pretty proud of the fact that I brought this unbelievable organization's habits and how you're supposed to, how things are done. And, you take guys out to dinner, you don't, everybody's got to make everybody feel happy and included. And Pittsburgh wasn't really like that when I got there. And even at 21 years old at the time, I started to kind of bring that concept to the guys. I remember Paul Coffey got traded there a year or two later, and I said, "Where are you staying?" He said, "I went, no, you're not. You're staying with me." So I did the same thing, but nobody did that for me when I got to Pittsburgh. It was just not even thought of. So if there was a single guy that had a room, you bring him to your house for till he found his own place in 3 or 4 weeks. So, but Pittsburgh was a treat to play with Mario. As the years went on, I played with some great fun guys too, like Randy Cunningworth and Dan Frawley and Doug Bodger. But then Kevin Stevens and Mark Recchi coming in, and 3 years later, and playing with Koff. It was just a lot of fun. It was some of the funnest hockey I ever played.
We had Peter Taglianetti on the show, and he had really good fun stories from his time in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. No, it's a great city. You know, I loved it. My kids were born there. My two daughters, I should say, were born there. But once I didn't have a reason to be there in the winter, it was hard, not to get. I moved down to Florida, basically, and right when I retired. But it's a great city and it's a great team, and went through some struggles there at the end of after Mario having to buy the team, but Sydney's kind of made it a must. I think they just sold again, actually, didn't they? I think somebody just bought them the other day.
Oh wow, did not see that. No.
I
Yeah,
news to us. Breaking news right on the
There you go.
podcast.
Yeah.
no, a guy
There's
named
been
Jeff
so many
Hoffman.
trades that everything has been,
It
yeah.
hasn't been approved, but it was a guy named Jeff Hoffman, and I saw him doing a thing. He's on the board of governors, so it's a shipping magnet company out
Oh
of
wow.
out
Okay.
of New York or something. They bought it off of Fenway Sports for 1.7 or 1.8. I just read it this morning.
Wow.
So
Mm.
Derek, question for Dan.
So you get traded about a month and a half into the 86 season. Was the writing on the wall? Did you know this was going to happen? Were you talking to your agent? Was it something that you were
I
looking to do?
signed a 3-year deal that summer,
Yeah.
and then I got to camp, and it was the same old, same old. I'm like, I'm going in my fourth year, and they wanted me to be, I was a leading scorer. Do you want? But I didn't know every night how much I was going to play or who I was going to play with. I killed penalties one game, and then I couldn't play in the last 10 minutes of a game because I wasn't good enough defensively. Nothing made sense, and I was just ready to. So I had gotten frustrated, and it's sort of even in the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, I scored 2 goals in Game 6 against St. Louis, 2 goals in Games 5, 2 games in the semifinals. And I tell the story only because in Game 6, if it's the Doug Wickenheiser game, I don't know if you guys have ever seen that one where they came back on us like 5-2 to beat us 6-5 in overtime.
In 9 seconds into overtime, was that?
No, that was the Stanley Cup the next round.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. Yep.
But in that series, I scored 2 goals in each game, and in the third period of the Game 6, I didn't play. And then all of a sudden it's overtime. We're down. The lead's gone. So with Game 7, I played a whole game. Anyway, it was just hard. It was just hard to go to work every day, not knowing how much you were going to be used. Yet, if you didn't play well, they were going to blame you.
That was a good old, what we call the good old hockey trade, which is rare these days. 1-for-1, pretty much you for Mike Bullard. It's a
Yeah,
very
Mike.
good trade. No,
I
couple
think
good
Mike
players.
was the one that hey, they were going to trade him, so he became available, and I think Cliff Fletcher and I were pretty close. He was a GM,
Okay.
and he
Okay.
called me down. I knew the night before that I could tell something was up, and they got a call in the morning to come down to the office, and he goes in. So hey, I went, Cliff, just tell me where I'm not upset. He goes, so he thought I was going to be upset, and I mean, there's other places I maybe would have fantasized about, like in New York or Chicago or something like that, but Pittsburgh turned out to be great. As I said, I loved it. I called it home for a long time.
Yeah. And looking, so you go to Pittsburgh in the 86-87 season, 87 Canada Cup comes. Now you're teammates with Mario for the 87-88 season. Talk to us almost like a night and day Mario between both seasons. He's coming off the Canada Cup win.
Yeah, that's a great observation. No question. Obviously, we had a year, and I saw enough of him. He was smoking in between periods. He said the only time he loses weight is when he stops eating French fries, and he was that talented he could get away with it. But I was like, dude, I don't know what you know. What I just played against this group up in Edmonton like 42 times the last 3 years. They're pretty good. Sorry, I guess under my throat. Anyway, so when he went to Canada Cup, to your point, hanging around with Mark and Messi especially, and Koff and Wayne, he came back. And I remember like the year before we had a skate, and the guys all kind of got in a nice little 3/4 speed. Nobody went hard, and I went flying. So I'm gonna get a nice bag skate. Let's go. Let's get in shape. And he goes, "What are you doing?" I went, "Well, I'm not gonna just go through the motions here." Come back, fast forward to the next camp. He took off on everybody. Nobody could catch him. Like we're doing like 4 laps or something. And he goes, I got it. I said, well, he never I was telling some guys, these bunch of us, I've never seen a guy that never had to work out though. Like he had big, strong thighs. He was naturally strong, 6'4", and like I remember we've joked this. I took him to the track. I said, let's go run the track. We'll do like 2 miles and then we'll go play golf. He did 1 lap, maybe half of a lap, and then started walking. I said, I'll see you at the course. Of course, he was the best guy on the ice at training camp, So
Yeah.
it's just, but no question. Him playing with Wayne. I mean, it's one of my favorite YouTubes. I don't know if you guys ever do it. Google the Mary Lemieux Wayne Gretzky. It's like 11 or 12 minute clip of the when they played together in the
Yeah.
in '87 Canada Cup,
Yeah.
and it's pretty cool. It's just a quick little highlight of two of the best scorers ever to
Yep.
play on the same line for a little while.
Yeah. There's a great book, Gretzky to Lemieux. And it talks about how Wayne and Mess really kept Iron Mike Keenan in check and allowed that team to kind of be themselves. So I'm sure that had a lot to do with it as well for Mario. Now you were on that. So I looked up your stats. One year you had 21 power play goals. What was that? Were you on the number one power play? I'm assuming it. Who else was on there with you and Mario? Coffee, I'm assuming it.
The year I had 21, I can't remember if Koff was there yet.
Okay.
But we had back-to-back years of like 119, 120 goals. So there's still records to this day, I believe.
Yeah.
And a lot of it obviously was Mario, and we had Robbie Brown he had a
Oh
big
yeah.
year there one time.
Nice.
Um, and that was pretty much me, Robbie, and Mario that one year, I think. Um, and there was Koff, and we had Zardy Zalapski was a hell of a
Oh,
keeper. So we had enough guys on D. But I learned so much from Calgary's power play. We had one of the highest percentages since Montreal ever, close to 30% one year. So I was on the highest percentage in Calgary and the highest goal scoring. But I learned a lot in Calgary, and it helped me kind of bring that mentality to the Pittsburgh power play. That obviously, with or without me, it kind of lasted. It was, we moved the puck pretty well. We worked hard. We knew how big important faceoffs and possessions were. We didn't do Hail Marys. So it was a fun power play to be on.
nice. I bet.
Tom, question for Dan.
Yeah, going back to your younger days playing, if you could go back, what would you give yourself for advice? Would you change anything?
Well, again, just looking at my hardest thing for me was, I would get so jacked up for a game and I couldn't sleep at night. Just all the stuff, the information they have now, the training, the hydration. We flew commercial. We didn't have team meals. Like we would have to go find a restaurant to have a meal out on the road or even at home. And we didn't have. And so that for a guy that couldn't keep weight on was playing at 170, 75 pounds if I was lucky, that would have been huge. And then just knowing how to work out and stay fit during the season would have been a huge help me to be a lot more consistent. I know that once I was in shape, I could go on 20, 25 game stretches and just play good and just leave me alone. I was in a good spot. But if I got out of shape or if we had a lull or I didn't play a lot, sometimes then, once I couldn't play well when I wasn't in really top shape. I could look really, it was hard to be a skilled player if you weren't in really top shape. And if I could look back on anything, that would be the number one thing, just to know what they know now or to do it differently. I probably knew enough, but sometimes, you didn't pay, you were so tired, you just wanted to rest. And I probably wish I was doing more recovery and stuff that they do now.
Dan, the movement from Pittsburgh on, did that come as a surprise, or was that a decision that you made?
No, it wasn't me. So I never wanted to be traded from Pittsburgh, but I always, well, if you look back, and I guess I could say it 100 different ways, but it is what it is. In Pittsburgh, I played 4 years, but I had three different coaches. So I had Bob Berry, then Pierre Creamer, then Gene Ubriaco, and then they got fired. So I was on my fourth coach basically in my fourth 4.5 years. Three GMs. We had Eddie Johnson when I got there, Tony Esposito, that whole debacle. And then, so you're somebody, when you have Mario's Mario, Coffee's Coffee, and you're like there, everybody's going to see you differently and use you differently. So, and I was still had a little bit of a marketable, I was an asset that when you're going to make a move or come in. So Craig Patrick came in and made a big trade with Vancouver. And I'll be honest with you, it broke my heart because I just love playing with that group in Pittsburgh and wanted to try to figure a way to stay in it. But they made a big trade and they actually missed, they did miss the playoffs the year that I got traded. And then they won the cup. They were going to miss the cup in 91. they made the big trade with Hartford, and they kind of put the organization back on the right track. But they were nowhere if you look at their record. They weren't barely, but then they won in 91, 92. I remember being in Philly and Rick Tocchet got traded there, and he was all upset. And I went, Talk, Philly was not the Philly that it became. Philly was the in transition as well with management. And he had the best time ever. So he got to go play and win a cup in
Yeah.
Pittsburgh. Um, so yeah, I got traded to Vancouver, and I also say it's one of the biggest mistakes I ever made. I got given a great opportunity. They made me a captain. I got a nice contract, but I knew because of Calgary and how we thought of Vancouver, and it was actually very hard to travel. It was a nightmare from Vancouver flying commercial. But I don't know why I didn't like being there, and I played well for a little bit, but not very long. And they made me captain go in after the first year or so, or tri-captain with Trevor Linden. But I was treated very well, and I just had a really bad attitude. And if I look back on it, that was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made. And my career kind of went sideways because of that for a year or two.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the captain, how it felt to, when they threw it on you. Was it looking back? I'm sure you were in the moment, like you were saying, but it that's one of the apex of being a player on a team is being looked at as a leader.
Well, I was just assistant captain in Pittsburgh, but also I think it was kind of a tricky thing. I mean, me, Doug Lister, and Trevor Linden, we were going to wear 10 games, 10 games, 10 games. It was kind of a half-assed way of doing it. I think they should have made Trevor Linden the captain, which he ended up becoming. And we could have just been assistants, but Trevor was just a young kid, like in his second year. So, but yeah, it was still cool to wear it for a little while. Again, it was just a weird team. I could feel there was just not a lot there, and Trevor was great. Kirk McLean, we had a good goalie, but there was just a lot of moving parts. They brought in a lot of people. Brought the Russians in, Igor Larionov and Krutov came in that year. It was just everything was just kind of, nobody knew what was going on. So it was, that's it's just the way Vancouver was, I guess.
Any good Krutov stories to share for the
Yeah,
listeners?
we took him to a bar one time, and if your listeners know but he was on the Big Red Machine, and in '87 Canada World Championships, I went to play for Canada, and I played against the Big Red
Okay.
Machine, whatever they call it, but and they didn't win the Worlds either. Sweden won it. Anyway, I took him. We were at a bar, and I said, "Krutz, come have it." And he couldn't understand English, so I said, "Let's have a shot." So we did. What do you want? Vodka. So I told the bartender, "Give me water, and give Krutz." He had about 6 of them. I think I was drunker on the water. He
Yeah,
just sucked. It didn't bother him at all, but he was so out of it. He didn't care. He didn't want to be there. Igor was a great, obviously, he played there and then figured a way to hang in and become a part of that Red Wings team. But I don't think any of those guys, well, Fedosov had a good stint with Jersey. I don't
yeah,
think any of them Makarov maybe had a little bit. That was their line. Krutov, Larionov, Makarov. But
yep,
I
yep.
think
My
Igor,
son went to a skating camp in Staten Island, New York, that was put on by Kasatonov. He was quite the character.
yeah,
Yeah,
well, they were great hockey players, but
yep,
they'd already been through so much. And when you hear, sitting around with Igor, get on an airplane with him for a 3-hour flight, listen to what, his life was like over there and what they went through, my God, so
yeah,
it
yep,
was, 11 months a year, twice a day, don't see your family even when you did see your family, they were living in 300 square foot apartments, it was crazy,
yeah, yep,
and playing for the best team, in the world.
yep.
Tom, a question for Dan.
Yeah. Was there a player that you played with that was better than you realized that, like, going from, I guess, from watching him play and then playing with him, once you played with them, you thought they were better than you thought?
Yeah, there's a lot of guys like that. I mean, I would say when you sit around and talk about the modern game and our era, uh, um, guys like a guy like Eric Desjardins and Mark Howe talking about Flyers, how they would flourish as defensemen in this league versus the way it was barbarically. Paul Coffey, the way they play defense now, you don't get run. You don't just dump it in from the, inside the red line and then run at you from 200 for 100 feet because you're not allowed to. But those guys, Desjardins, those guys were way better than Mark Howe, Desjardins were better than I ever thought. But he just won the Stanley Cup. Rod Brindamore and I were roommates. We got traded from St. Louis to
Wow.
Philly, lived together for a year. He was a unique guy. I never thought he would be this coach that he is now, because I always said when we lived together, I was the one out till 2 in the morning. He was the one home doing pickup. But he's won over the guys, and he's won over the guys, done a hell of a job. And I don't know who's rattling there, but he's done a hell of a job. And congrats to win the cup and the as a player and as a coach, the same franchise is unbelievable.
Dan, I got to ask you about the movement from Vancouver after, 2 seasons to St. Louis for a season. How did that transpire? That move, was it something that you asked for, or was it
I
something?
did ask in Vancouver. Is the only time I ever asked to be traded. I did ask it sometime during the winter, and then they fired the coach. It just gotten out of control. Again, when you were on point to be a better scorer and you don't produce, then you're going to take the brunt of it. But there was a certain amount of, I'm in my seventh or eighth. I'm in my eighth year, I think. I'm still just a young kid, 26, 27 years old. But I did ask to be traded, and then Pat Quinn fired everybody, and then he took over the bench, and then he made a great trade for Vancouver because St. Louis really wanted Garth Butcher. They wanted a tough defenseman, so he and I got traded for about 7 guys. But that really put Vancouver into a really good spot to compete because they got a lot of depth and some good hockey players.
Yeah, that was the Cliff Ronning was in that deal as well, right? Yeah.
Cliff Ronning, Courtnall,
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big trade. I remember that.
Sergio Messo, I think.
Yep.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. St. Louis was, I love them like a brother, Brett Hull, but they were listening to the wrong people there, and there was Scott Stevens. They had some great players, but Hully and Adamos kind of had the run of the place, and it was not a. That's why I was happy for Roddy to get to go to Philly and make a career there, because he was getting they were shitting or crapping on a lot of guys. Those 2 guys were not. They couldn't tell those guys to do anything. So as we always say, I don't know if you ever had Brett Hull. He's fucking. I love him. Excuse me for swearing, but he goes. Gretzky goes. He played there in St. Louis with him. He goes, I had to go tell Hully, hey Hully, there's no I in team. He goes, yeah, well, there's no team without I. Yeah, that's kind of the way he thought, So, but great guy, and he was a great hockey player, one of the best goal scorers ever.
Yeah, the time in St. Louis with Brett Hull and that crew. Brett Hull's been doing a lot of podcasts, and he said he never wanted to stick handle; he just wanted to shoot. So I'm sure his personality kind of tells that story.
He started in Calgary, so my third, like he came in. We roomed together in my third training camp. I remember played with him for a little bit, and then they called him up in the finals. They sent him to the minors, called him up in the Stanley Cup finals, if you can imagine. His first shot ever hit the goalpost in Montreal in the Stanley Cup finals. But I tell him, sitting around with him sitting right here, I got traded to St. Louis, and we had a power play, and Adam Oates was playing. He's a right-hand shot, bumped one over to me, and I'm a lefty, and on my off wing, and I buried one up over the goalie. One timed it up there. Get to the bench, and Hully goes, "What the hell of a shot! I still don't know how the hell you shoot the puck when I'm on the ice." I said, did you just hear what he just said? I just buried this puck like in a little triangle over this goalie's, and he just said, "I don't know how you take that shot when I'm on the ice."
Yeah, because we're on that subject, Dan, you got to tell us your favorite Brett Hull story.
Well, that was kind of one of them.
Okay, all right.
That was the best one. I just told 2 of them. I mean, there's no I in team. There was no team without I, and that went on. I swear to God, I'm sitting in Nassau County Coliseum, going. I said to the trainer, "Did you hear that?" Because I'm down at the other end of the bench. Nobody else could have heard him say, "How could you take a shot on?" I just scored. Like, it wasn't like I shot one wide or hit the defenseman in the pads. I scored. But anyway, Hully's he's a great guy, generous. We've been playing some golf lately the last 2 years, so he does a great job on that podcast with Kelly Chase. God bless him.
Yeah. It's a good one. It's definitely a good one. Derek, question for Dan.
Dan, during your time in St. Louis, did you play with Curtis Joseph?
No, it was it? No. Curtis was not there. No, it was Vincent,
Riendo.
Riando, Vinny Riando.
Yeah,
Yep.
Vinny Riando.
But
So,
the reason for asking is they just came out with the Hall of Fame finalists, and Carey Price deserving, Pecorine deserving. I'm taking a deep breath here, but why in the hell is Curtis Joseph not in the Hall of Fame? He's got over 500 career wins combined, playoffs, regular season. I mean, he doesn't have the cup, he doesn't have the Vezina, but they're starting to let more goalies into the Hall of Fame, and we should be making a case for Curtis Joseph. I don't know if you were.
well, there's a lot. I mean, Theo Fleury. I was texting with some guys when everything. There's a lot of guys that I would think have been overlooked. Um, yeah, without being whatever. It's definitely gotten a little too much. It's a hockey Hall of Fame. There's always. I know it's 2026, but some of these women, I don't know who they are. There's that. Did they deserve to go in before a guy like Curtis Joseph in the Hockey Hall of Fame? Not again. I think it's gotten a little too. Canada's gone a little bit too far, and the Hockey Hall of Fame is in Toronto. So I'll leave it at that.
The high road. I like it. Yeah, there's guys. And speaking of that, we're talking about moving on to the Flyers. You talked about Rod Brindamore. You talked about one of my all-time favorites, Rick Tocchet. Tell us about how you ended up going to America's team, the Philadelphia Flyers.
Well, I was kind of St. Louis wanted. I think Brian Sutter wanted his brother. So Ronnie was the reason they wanted. Murray Barron, I think, went with it. So me and Roddy got traded, but Roddy was the asset. I was kind of, a contract that they had to take. And but Philly that year, was it 91, 92, was again not the Philadelphia Flyers. It was, Homer was coaching, but it was a Russ Farwell had come in, and Jay Snyder was his only 1 or 2 years that he took over, and it wasn't the Philadelphia Flyers. I say it was going back there, and went back there in 95-6 with the Lindros team, and we lost to the Florida Panthers in 96. But that's when I saw what the Flyers were. Bobby Clark was running it. It's one of the best organizations in hockey for sure. And I played with Talk in the 91, 92, 91, 92, but it was, I liked Philly. I loved South Jersey. It was great. You could go play golf a lot of times after practice, and you could, the casino, go down Atlantic City and play some cards and have dinner. So, the dead time was not, it was easily passable. And we all lived in South Jersey. We didn't really live in Philly. I went back to Philly as a caddy more. I went as caddy for Ernie Els in the U.S. Open in 2013 at Marion. I spent more time in out Mainline or whatever you call it than I did when I was playing for the Flyers, because we all lived in that Voorhees Cherry Hills area.
Yeah, the guys that we've had on, from Joe Watson, everybody that we've talked to has always preached the total family aspect with Ed Schneider, and what you see that they present on TV is exactly how they are: super family orientated, take care of the alumni. The alumni are always involved with whatever team is on the ice, and they preach that, the Flyers type atmosphere. So what you're saying kind of holds kind of true still to this day.
Yeah, Brad Marsh is running the Alumni Association there. And there's a huge email that comes out with all the names, but there's a ton of guys that have called that home, retired there. So that's always a testimony to how the organization is. I think Boston and Chicago, some of the teams have. St. Louis has got a good alumni. But yeah, it all goes to guys. Philadelphia is one of the tons of guys played there and maybe get traded, but then they come back there. I still keep in touch with Tocchet, play golf with him when he was with TNT through Gretz, so I'd still text with him. So very excited for him, and what he did last year was a great accomplishment. They got a long way to go. It's the Eastern Conference. I'm down here in Florida, so my kids are Panthers fans, and it's going to be a tough. Carolina's good, but Florida's going to be hard to beat if they get a goalie. So
yeah, and they just made a trade with Philly for Garnett Hathaway today. So
what's his story? What's he all about? Just a tough kid?
Another pest, tough, drop him when he has to. Not an enforcer type, but that modern day pest that gets in there after the whistle and pie face and all that stuff. So
Yeah,
fits
because
right in with that sandpaper style that Florida likes to play.
Florida's top nine is going to be very good, skilled, and can play hard, and they're big. Obviously I don't know, Brady Kachuk's a big, big man. I played golf with him like 3 years ago, but they're going to lose AJ Greer and they're going to lose a couple of those gritty guys. So that's probably why they made that trade because they're, free agents. But I think I can give you a scoop. I think they're going to sign Skinner.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
wow. All right. Okay. We'll hold you to it.
I,
We'll hold
They'll
you to it.
be by next Wednesday. You'll see they're with free agents. He's a total free agent. Everybody goes, oh, he played for not a great defensive team in Edmonton, went to the Stanley Cup Finals 2 years in a row. So I'm not sure how good he is, but they're not. Bobrovsky's wants too long, so there's that contract's not going to work. He wants
yeah.
that. So I think you'll see that they might do two goalies, but I don't know if they can do something with Binnington or not. But
Yeah.
I would think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna have enough collateral to get Hellebuck. I know they wanted that, but once this Brady Kachuk thing happened, they got rid of those picks. I don't think they have anything else to trade.
See, Derek, we could have used Dan on that Stanley Cup episode where we had Steve Passmore on and we were doing a deep dive into the finals. We
Yep.
Next year we got to have you on, Dan, for that.
Yeah, would have crushed it. Yep.
All right.
Derek, question.
Dan, I wanted to go back. You mentioned 95, 96. You're with the Flyers, I believe. You play the Panthers in the playoffs. I think you said you lost to them. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So that comes post 94, 95 lockout. Florida's an expansion team. Anaheim's an expansion team. San Jose is still a de facto expansion team. Are you starting to see the bullcrap that sent Mario into retirement at that point where you're like, you know what? Yeah, it was tough to play in the 80s, but like you said, we had our lanes, we were able to skate, and now it's just becoming that whole clutch and grab and hold on to the player era. And did that lead to you going overseas after that?
Definitely. I was like, it guy wore me out. I was too small. You got these bigger guys, and you got teams that didn't even forecheck, would sit with five guys in the neutral zone and just I call it water ski behind you. Like they would just put their stick on you and
Yeah.
water ski. Like they got away with it. So you couldn't get any speed up. You couldn't get away from anybody. And I still think, I mean, that I'm disappointed. That Flyer team was I don't know. You're going to appreciate, well, you or the Flyer fans are going to appreciate, but Ronnie Hextall was just not a good goalie, and that was our fallback. He was a great competitor, a good goalie, but he always, especially in a series against Van Beesbrook in Florida, that's always gave up one weak one where he was leaning too far one way or the other way. And I think he got a lot of notoriety for his way he competed and the chasing people around with sticks. But at the end of the day, playing solid goaltending to get, he did do well in '87, I believe. But if you look back on it and you look at those games, he gave up one every game, and it gave us the same. It was just weird, and I think that team was pretty good. That Flyer team was really good, and I think we should have beat Florida, and then we would have had to play Pittsburgh. But Florida went up and beat Pittsburgh, so it was just they had a good hot goalie, and they were playing that system where maul, and score key goals, at times, and. So I'm sure when Colorado got them in the finals, they were licking their chops. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good point.
And you got to see epic Eric Lindros in his prime. How nasty was he to be on the ice with?
Well, some guys say different things, and I won't. But I will say there's one guy. If you said he was a better hockey player than you know. So I got to play. Actually, got to play with him in Leclerc for a little stint when Renberg was hurt. And, I was a pretty smart player, not the size of those guys, and had a little, Eric's problem was he didn't have a change of pace. And that's what ended up shortening his career. If you look at Mario or Wayne, they have it. Although McDavid and these guys, they kind of go 100% now, but they don't get lined up like, Eric could get. Once they got there, if Eric could have learned a little bit of a change of pace to slow the play down or know when to go 100%. But that said, he was a better hockey player than when I got there. He could shoot. He was a good passer. He was good to play with, and he was as a beast of a man. Huge. So once he got going, but there again, once guys are his size and you put them in they don't call it. I mean, they just get to maul him. If you look at videos of Mario Lemieux, what they did to him and what he got, still he led the league in scoring.
Yeah.
If he was playing, they would draw 20 penalties a game, literally. Like, and I mean, Wayne had it hard, but not like Mario, just because they thought he was big, he had to deal with it. Eric was the same way. Because he was big, he had to deal with it. And but so yeah, if he was playing today, Mario's playing today. I always say you look at it the other way, the old stove, when you're an old guy like me, you say, well, who could play from this day and age could play back then? Obviously Ovechkin and Crosby, McKinnon, those guys could, but there's a lot of guys would have a tough time playing back when it was a little bit barbaric and just, it was a different game.
Yeah, the culture was different too. A locker room culture, traveling culture. There's a lot of stuff that I don't think a modern day player could handle with mentally. Chirping. Maybe a little bullying, maybe a little hazing. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Tom, question for Dan.
Yeah. Did you have a teammate or a line mate, I should say, that you just seemed to click with better than other ones?
Yeah, I would say I was telling somebody, sadly, I live right where Claude Lemieux passed away, a month ago, and I went to the service, and so Joe Sakic and Peter Forsberg were there. So many greats from my era, from that he played with, and I didn't know Claude. I went because it was 5 minutes from my house, and we were '83 draft, and I like playing with guys like a Claude Lemieux. I like playing guys. I didn't want to play with two other skilled players because I wanted to. I don't know. I played best when I could play not have to be the one to go get the puck. So if I played with, like, if I was on the same line with Mario or Wayne, it was never too much success. Now power play is different, but if I could play with, I had a great success in Calgary in Calgary with Lanny McDonald because he played kind of was a nose, straightforward. Him and Eddie Beers. And then I remember playing with Randy Cunningworth. I played with a lot in Pittsburgh. I really enjoyed playing with him. Again, just I knew what he was doing. He was always going to do the dirty, gritty stuff, and played a lot with Roddy Brindamore in St. Louis and Philly. So, but he played. He get the puck when he wanted it, and he didn't need it all the time. Where I liked having the puck and making sure everybody got it when they should get it. So, I was lucky enough though over the years to have played with. You heard all the names I mentioned tonight. I played with a lot of great hockey players.
Dan, playing overseas. For people who don't understand the difference, what's the biggest difference between European hockey and the NHL?
Well, it was during we had the lockout and a contract dispute. I went over there twice, I think. I went to Bern, and then I would say it was just weird that we played on Tuesdays and Saturdays, Sunday off, and in Switzerland it was so perfect because there's no bus ride over 2 hours. We didn't fly. You would go 40 minutes to the city, or Zurich was from Bern. Everything was close except for I think Lugano. That was an Italian part. So that was like a 2.5 hour drive. But it was they loved their hockey. Their country's obviously gotten better. They paid good money. It was just a simple, pretty cool lifestyle and decent hockey. It was just not the NHL. So I think that when I sit with dads now, and their kids are passionate about the sport, I said, because it's not like when I played, there was 21 teams, you're coming up, and if you really love the sport of hockey and went to school, now there's 150 jobs with every team. Back then there was 9 or 8, 10 jobs. There's a whole business side. If you love hockey, there's a whole hockey side for every NHL franchise. And then you have all of Europe, the whole world. Like, there's so many good jobs. So I had a friend of mine, his kid's 11 or 12, and I said, look, if he falls in love with it, let him love it and keep going, play as long as he can. And when he can't play anymore, he can pursue get a business degree, get some sort of a thing and still work in the sport of hockey. Because there's so many, like Europe, Claude Lemieux' son's playing over there. He's going back over to where the World Championships just were. It's called Zurich. So he's going back to play. It's a great way to extend careers. It's also not a bad way just to say, I'm going to go play in Europe. And some of these countries have really good leagues. Again, it's not the NHL, but it's a good option.
So Dan, as we would stop wrapping up the whole thing, we almost hit the hour mark. Derek, another question for Dan.
Dan, are you familiar with puck doku? I don't know if you can see it on my camera here on my phone.
I gotta put my eyes on, but no, I
I'm
got a
sorry.
big
I
glare
just
there.
wanted to. This is a shout out to you. Puck doku is kind of like you pick hockey players on different teams, and for core fans like me that go on there, we have a little group. Dan Quinn is a name that's on there a lot, and so I think that's a testament to your how long you played, and the teams you played on, and so the good smart fans know to put Dan Quinn, say Minnesota North Stars and Philadelphia Flyers or LA Kings, and so to that degree, I wanted to say, have you ever sat down and said, you know what, I played with Mario and Wayne? How many other people got to do that besides a Canada Cup or an All-Star game? You played
Right.
on, yeah.
Well, Mario Wayne, Brett Hull, Adam Oates, Scott Stevens. I played with Eric Lindros, Mark Howe, Desjardins. So, I got to play with a lot of, Wayne was my idol. He was 12 or 13. He was only 4 years older than me. And then he bought my junior team in Belleville. And when I was 17 years old, he was 21 years old. And I remember getting called I lived about 90 minutes away from my parents' house. Can you come up to Belleville tomorrow? So I drove up. Um, and I'm sitting at the owner's house in the middle of the afternoon. All of a sudden, this limousine came up, and I didn't know what was going on. And then Wayne Gretzky gets out. He bought half the team. I have this picture of when I'm 17, and there's Wayne. He came to camp that year. Marty, you tell a story about Martin McSorley. So Wayne came, and before he went to Edmonton's camp, he came to Belleville and skated on his own, and then he coached a game. And I got 3 goals for him when I was in that exhibition game. But so I've gotten, Mario and I were in each other's weddings. So I've been lucky enough to be around some of the best. Never played with Messier, um, but I've met Mark, met Trottier, it's just it was a great era to play. Sakic, I mean, the guys that were just at this service. Eiserman came down, never played with Claude, but I grew up with Steve, so yeah, I mean, it's the greatest game in the world. I think the game is in a great spot now. You guys are fans of a great sport, I think. The game, I love watching it now. It's been a fun, well, this year wasn't because I've gotten to know Todd Diamond's a friend of mine. He's at the draft right now. He's Barkov's agent. So through him, I've gotten connected with Barkey and Matthew Kachuk. I text him, hey, anything going on in your family the last couple of days? So,
Yeah.
so it's, but the kids are all good kids, and they all know how lucky they are to have it the way it is. And so again, to your point, I always look back and just it's hard not to look sometimes back and be cynical, but I've kind of gotten too old to be that way anymore. I love watching it and enjoy it, and my kids love the Panthers, and down here in Florida for 27 years, so it's kind of, even though I never played here, it's been a fun group to watch.
Tom,
And
last question for Dan from you.
Sure. What's the proudest moment of your hockey career?
The proudest moment of my hockey career. Hmm. Uh, I don't know. There was probably more disappointments than there is proudest moments, but I think that getting to the Stanley Cup Finals, in that my third year, um, was a pretty cool thing, and I tell everybody to this day, I said I thought that was just the way it was going to be every other year, and to never get back again, again, so proudest moment yet most dumbest thing to ever think that and to take it for granted. And obviously beating Edmonton was a big thing for Calgary, and getting to the finals. I don't even know if the Stanley Cup was even in our thoughts. It was just, let's beat the Oilers. And once we did that, the St. Louis took us 7. Um, but I think I've had guys from Rod Brindamore and everybody say to my kids, "Hey, your dad was a hell of a hockey player." Those are the coolest things.
So Dan, we usually end all these interviews with this final question is, if you had to describe your career in one word, what would it be?
I had a career.
Too many words.
I don't know. It's one word. I had a career. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, there's so many ups and so many downs. There's so many on both sides, to be honest. When I look back, I know I was a good player, and I know I was a really good player at times, and at times I was didn't have the best attitude, and so I'm disappointed in those. So like I have a little bit of a both.
So, growing up a little bit behind you in age wise, but watching almost your entire career, right? Always a fun player to watch. Especially from a Flyers fan perspective, I was happy when you were willing to come on the show and share your time with us. I always get excited when I get Flyer guys on here. So yeah, you made my night. You made these guys' night too. And I always tell everybody, friend of the show. After we've had you on, you'll officially always be a friend of the show, Dan. And we'd love to have you on again when we do our Stanley Cup episodes. And once the playoffs start next year, we'll get you back on, hopefully.
Sounds good. You got my number, and it was a really nice talking to you guys. At least I don't have to watch this boring World Cup soccer. It's driving me.
Hey, Andy, he's our Elliot Friedman. He's our
Yeah.
insider
Yeah,
for the
I like that.
1973 podcast.
See if that comes through.
All right, we'll see. Dan, thank you on Thursday night. We appreciate you
Thank you.
spending
Thank you very
time
much.
with us. We super appreciate it.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Dan.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.